we are creating a world where half the humanity is living under fear. The rapist or a molester thinks that I can do it and get away with it, yeah. Even if I'm caught, what is going to happen? I'll get a bail, come out of it. And even if I'm convicted, I'll keep getting paroles. Rarest of the rare or the smallest of the small. Everything is a violation. The pain, the shame, the guilt.
The great Sunitha Krishnan, welcome to JioLEAP.
Thank you.
It's been a while, Sunitha, since we last met, and I'm so happy that during that time, our nation has honored you with one of our highest civilian awards, the Padmashri. So proud of you,
Thank you.
Sunitha. So I want to really understand, when you stood in Rashtrapati Bhavan in front of our Honorable President receiving the award, what went through your mind?
It took huge amount of time for it to sink. So by the time I went to receive the award from the Honorable President of India, I think one of the biggest thought in my mind was, finally India is recognizing that young girls and young women are getting sold for prostitution, and that some work has to be done. And this work that this person is doing is a recognition that there is a problem of this kind. So for me, Padmashri was a recognition of the problem.
And your organization, Prajwala, is trying to solve the problem through the rescue and rehabilitation of survivors of sex trafficking and sexual violence. 30,000
30,100 as of last night.
30,100?
Yeah. And maybe a little more. Just now there is a rescue operation.
While you're sitting here?
Yeah, yes.
This is also not easy, Sunitha. It's a fight. You actually physically with your team go inside areas and rescue them physically. In the process, the last time we met, you had said you had some 20 broken bones and 1 deaf ear. What is the count now?
17 attacks on my life. I think, Sushil, you need to understand the context that I work in. I'm working against an organized crime, which is the second largest in the world with drugs and arms. So we're talking about big business, we're talking about big criminal industry. I'm also talking of a crime which is the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world. And practically more than 177 countries have reported to have this crime. And I'm also talking about a crime which is a $150 billion industry. Now you spoke about the numbers that I work with. Very modest number of 30,100. And I would say very modest number, largely because when we are talking on a modest estimate from the government that 3 million women and children are sold into sexual slavery.
3 million.
3 million. And this is the reported number, which essentially means that for every reported case, there are 20 not reported cases.
20.
So your numbers can be anything. Now, when I look at that 3 million and then look at my 30,000, I am just a minuscule. I have not reached anywhere in the kahani.
Interestingly, I was talking to my daughter, Ananya, and I said, Sunitha is coming, so what topic should I engage her on? And immediately, she said women's safety. And now she's a medical student studying in the second year. And I thought the recent tragic event in Kolkata hospital, that was playing on her mind. But a deeper discussion with her and her friends and also with many others, we realized that there is a major concern of women's safety with the youth of our nation. But there are two spectrums of this that they don't understand. One is the why, the cause. Why does it happen? And secondly, they would really like to know the solutions. How can they participate in the solutions? And then I said, this is perfect, because who else but you can very authentically not only throw light on women's safety as an issue, but also guide, inform, and inspire the youth to do something. At the end of the day, JioLEAP is all about inspiration. What we are trying to do is to inspire the youth to be more and to do more. Through this session, we are really trying to achieve that around women's safety. So let's take that as a broader topic.
For me, women's safety starts right from the question of birth. When a male child is preferred, to a female child. So much so that there are communities and communities in our country which actually kill babies after they are born, which is called as infanticide,
Infanticide.
you know. It starts from there. Now, is this something about literacy? Is this something about education? Sadly, no. The same thing you would see in very educated class. Now it is, you know, ultra scan, you know, checking predetermination of the sex of the baby, and if it's a girl child, you abort the baby. A poor person who's not literate, may not have the financial wherewithal, will kill the baby after it's born. A rich person who has got the literacy will kill the child when in womb. From there, discrimination based on a sex starts, you know. And with discrimination, a lot of other things come, because when you're not safe to even be born, and then you are constantly reminded that you are secondary. You're constantly reminded that your place is in jhadu pocha, domestic work, bartan manja, you know. So boy can go to the school, but you don't need to go to the, you learn housework, you learn cooking, you know, you do, this is your construct, you know. And then the family starts getting restless. Why are we keeping this girl? You know, get her off. Get her off your, you know, shoulders. And so you push the child into marriage, maybe, you know, at the age of 5, 6, 7, 10, 11. You have festivals around it. You have Akhatij kind of festivals in some parts of the country where babies are, you know, given in child marriage. You know, why is that done? Because they think that if this person is there, this is going to be a burden. Now, what does that come from? You're creating another social construct saying that boy is the higher, boy is the powerful, he's the provider, he's the giver, you are the lesser one. So, and with that also,
Why lesser? Because you can't provide, you can't,
you're not supposed to be providing.
you're not supposed to be.
Or rather, whatever you're doing is not provision.
You're supposed to be
Yeah,
cooking, you're
exactly,
not supposed to
yeah.
be providing.
And that's not work. See, cooking is not work. Getting money, you
That
know,
is work.
revenue is work.
Okay.
But
Anything
cooking,
else is not
yeah,
work.
cooking is not. Childcare is not. Looking after the family is not. Keeping the family together is not. So this construct of power, access to property is not. You know, he holds. He's the higher. He's the one provider. He's the continuer. Your family will continue with this. That's how a power hierarchy is created. And with that power hierarchy, another segment is also created. You cannot possess, you don't have the rights to possess, and therefore you always be at the weaker point. So when you're at the weaker point, then you jolly well know your place. So if he wants to slap you, or he wants to show his stress on you, because he's so tired, you see, he's coming back from outside work, and that stress makes him drink, you know, alcohol or whatever. And because of that, you know, if he shows that on you, if he kicks you and he says, what is this food made, it's not up to the mark, you take it because you're in a subservient position. You see how safety is shrinking. So violence within the family is normalized because you are not in a powerful position, you're weak. And if you have to survive in this largest, you know, scheme of things, you keep quiet, you know.
You keep quiet because there is no support.
You keep quiet
This how
because you
it-
don't
this
have
is how it's
access
going
to
to be. Correct.
anything,
Correct.
you know. So this person is the so-called male gender, is the one who's providing you everything. So you keep quiet because this is what is. Now with that comes also a certain kind of intrinsic normalized silence. A slap on your face, you can't talk about it. Now if you talk about it, one, you are shaking your own apple cart. Okay, more you talk about it, this your family system which is supporting you will break, and therefore the entire family also conspires, say,
Then you are on your
don't come
own.
back, stay there. If you come back, this will break. Okay. Now with this also comes another kind of silence. Anything that happens to you physically, sexually, or anything else is taboo. You can't talk about it. Because if you talk about it, it will impinge on the so-called honor of the family. Okay. Now, this whole thing, this is what we call it as patriarchy. You know, a certain male dominance to be kept high, and then a whole lot of social narratives created around it, you know, that will support this power, you know. Now, when you start breaking these points, you'll also see that a narrative is created for especially the women, that your honor is located on your vagina. So if somebody touches that or something happens to that, your honor is lost. Now, when your honor is lost, the society's honor is lost, the family's honor is lost.
So no support.
No support. So you are dishonorable, you're creating that. That is how we create another level of silence. Silence around sexual violence. Don't speak about it. Don't, you know, articulate it, because moment you articulate it, you have to say who did it. It will be a man. The man is the right man. You can't be doing anything wrong. So what comes?
The man
Must
is
have done
right.
it. Yeah. So you must have done something to get that on you. You know. So why did you go there?
Why did you go there?
Go there. Why did you wear that dress? What were you doing in the night? You know. So another whole set of thought processes and perceptions are built around this, to say that if you cross this Lakshman Rekha, you know, it is you who are responsible for it then. Okay? So if you wear a dress that is provocative, you have crossed the Lakshman Rekha. So now if anybody sexually molests you, stalks you, rapes you, gang rapes you, you asked for it.
Wow.
Now, I faced that as a survivor of gang rape myself, you know, where the entire burden of the crime was fixed on my head, not on the 8 men. So the shame, the guilt, the pain, everything is mine. Now, why did she go there? What was she doing in the night? Parents have given too much of freedom, and which means now let this message go to every family in the community. Don't give so much of freedom to your daughters, you know. So women's safety is not just about existing and taking breath as a human being, my right to life. It's about shrinking my space and keeping me in a corner which is convenient for somebody else, which is also about making me so burdened with seeing on my right, seeing on my left, seeing on back, where I go, how I go, what I wear. That is the shrinking space of women's safety. So women's safety is about your body, it's about your mind, and finally, it's about your soul. Because you will never be allowed to actualize yourself. You will be pushed and crushed and kept. So when you spoke about Ananya's context of, you know, the RG car case, what were many people talking? They were talking, if this happens to a doctor, why would anybody send anybody for medicine now? Every hospital also is unsafe. That is what we are doing. We are creating a world where half the humanity is living under fear, you know. And when fear retards you, you can never actualize your entire potential. So in my opinion, that's a gender construct, you know. For centuries, it comes from a patriarchal thinking. It comes from a patriarchal, you know, conditioning, which is changing because gender changes. While sex is something biological, gender is a social construct. At different times of periods, it changes. In different regions of the world, it changes. So what is in India is not what is in Germany, or what is in US is not what is in Greece. So different countries have their own gender construct. And as we are evolving, it changes, which essentially means, Sushil, whatever we are going through today can be changed.
Excellent.
You know, change is possible if we all, men, women, children, young, old, and the youth, which is the most vibrant force of our society, which is not only young in mind, but is also young in thinking, young in cultivating new conditioning. If all the youth of today can decide that this has to be changed, the children of tomorrow will have a better future.
Excellent. I mean, if you look at the numbers, one woman gets raped in India every 16 minutes.
Yes.
87% of the women have faced some sexual harassment in public. 90% of those go unreported. There's also 18 women die daily due to dowry related violence, even today. And when I say dowry related, it's not just rural India, this also happens in the cities.
More than 30% of women and girl children have faced violence of some form in their lifetime. And that's the very modest estimates of Government of India.
What is the role of law and order here? Because clearly, I think your first resort should be, okay, there is a system, there are laws which are pro-women's safety laws. And how does that work? Because where do these women go and why do they underreport? We looked at that in terms of the silence part. But what is happening with the support mechanism of law and order?
I think in the world, India can boast of one of the best legal provisions on women's safety.
Nice.
From infanticide, feticide, to domestic violence, to sexual violence, to human trafficking, all forms. And also, when we spoke about all these, different forms of harassment against things, we need to also add that with technology, the violence against women has increased 100-fold. Today, we have to also bring in sextortion, harassment of women, stalking of women, using technology, which is a larger landscape.
Yeah.
Before it was in this much space, now it's in the larger space of social media. So there's a numbers we're not able to quantify because some reported, a huge amount of. I think what our position should be is one too many.
One too many.
Absolutely. That should be our position. But having said that we have good laws, I can't say the same about the implementation of the laws. Okay. Implementation means what? Implementation means the criminal justice system, which includes the police,
correct,
the prosecutors, the judicial officers. Now, all these three are understaffed, undertrained, and the priorities are all mixed up, overworked, and complete misplaced priorities. So, the amount of time, energy, and effort which is put in VIP security and bandobast duty, is never put in, ensuring that the cases move. See, because getting a complaint lodged is not a big deal, but I have to see the light of justice in my lifetime, right? How long are you supposed to, make me wait? So if I, as a person, I'm raped and I take the courage to go into the police station and report, and it takes 20 years for the case to come up. So are you expecting me for 20 years to carry the burden of pain and be re-traumatized again and again, reminder of it, and 20 years later, the trial comes up, and now maybe I'm married, maybe I have a family, maybe
now you don't want the trial to come up.
I just want to move on, no closure. Then I'm thrashed in the court. I'm made to look like a liar. I'm made to, because the entire defense will ensure that
the job.
Person. So seeing this entire journey, 20 other people who are watching me don't want to complain. Because if you're going to be re-traumatized, and I call it a secondary victimization. Secondary victimization by the legal functionaries, by the criminal justice system, So that
no solace.
Yeah. Most people don't report not only because of the shame and the guilt and the question of honor and dishonor in the society,
but it's the pain of the process.
Because of the lengthy processes.
Wow.
So,
so what is the solution? Fast track courts?
The whole problem is investment of money, in building designated courts. Special courts and not designated courts. What is happening now is every time we create some halla gulla about all this, there is an order saying that, okay, special courts to be done. So special courts are not made. What they do is designate a court. as a
Because that's not sustainable now.
yeah.
It's for
So
just as a,
designated. So this fellow is doing some 20,000 cases. Add this more also into it. So I think we need to look at the criminal justice system differently. We need to staff them correctly. We need to provide them adequate budget, because I think justice is deterrence. Crime will end when people are punished for the crime that they have committed. And that has to be done on speedy justice basis.
swift, sure, severe.
Now, what is the point in making a rapist or a molester, as a state guest and make them sit in our central jails or other jails and take care of them, and then a whole lot of civil liberties are looking at the human rights of these molesters and rapists and say, okay, let's give them the best of food and best of, and jails become like a nice state guest house for everybody to commit their crimes. What is the point? Whatever is the punishment given, if it is given at the time that the crime has happened and in a way which is fair to both the parties, in terms of, you have to give a fair chance for the accused to answer. Do it quickly. Speedy trial. So, and I always say this, justice delayed is justice denied. And until justice does not happen in time, there cannot be a deterrence. Because a rapist or a molester or any violator thinks that I can do it and get away with it, yeah. Even if I'm caught, what is going to happen? I'll get a bail, come out of it. And even if I'm convicted, I'll keep getting paroles. So whatever your punishment you're giving, which has to be proportionate to the crime that has been committed, and if the law of the land says capital punishment, so be it. Rarest of the rare or the smallest of the small, everything is a violation. The pain, the shame, the guilt.
You mentioned the proportion of the crime. That's really the gravity of the crime.
Absolutely.
Right? Is that well understood?
I don't think it's well understood. Like this judge, for example, in Chhattisgarh, I think, which happened a few days back, said that if a woman is raped by her husband and in the process even gets killed, it's not the husband's fault. And he thinks marital rape cannot be the reason to convict a person and acquit it. It's a perception. So a lot of work needs to be done also in changing the perceptions.
Also changing some laws?
Not so much about laws. Laws are all in the right way. Interpretation of the law. If there is an amendment that I would like this country to have, is to make dispersal of law or judicial dispersal accountable. So if you don't finish a case, say by so and so time, let the entire stakeholders in the criminal justice system be fixed for that. Let them be made accountable for that. Let them be pushed to a corner to answer why they have not completed it. 2018, Sushil, we rescued 36 children from a sex trafficking racket. The youngest child was around 3 years and 2 months. Till date, the case has not come up for trial. Now 2018 is 7 years now. POXO Act is so clear that the entire case should get over in 1 year.
And the reason why it is not there is just purely
the system is because
inundated.
You have so many loopholes within your system that is tilted towards the accused. So every time the case moves forward, the defense finds a ways to adjourn it, or goes to the High Court, or goes to the Supreme Court. So you do all delay tactics.
So the special court should also look at the process of giving justice, saying that some of these delaying processes are not applied here.
Exactly. And if you can create an accountability framework, and based on the accountability framework, create the process appropriate for it.
So don't change the law,
yeah,
but change the process.
Exactly.
Don't apply the standard process.
Yes. So if you want a case to get over in 6 months, this is how much of adjournment can happen in this.
Got it.
This is how far it can happen. in this much time this has to get over. You go to the High Court, you go to the Supreme Court, go to any damn court here, it should get over in 2 days or 3 days or 4 days. That accountability in time frame. And if it does not happen, let's fix people, right?
Yeah.
Because it's lives that we are playing.
You know, as India, we are so proud of our technological prowess now. The whole world is talking about it. But clearly, I think we've also, technology has created a lot of problems. You mentioned a few. Social media, it is very, very useful. At the same time, when it comes to women's safety, looks like it also creates a lot of problems in terms
So
of
much.
consumption, right?
You know, I don't think female journalists or activists have faced as much of abuse that we face today, because social media is, you know, give for all, take for all
Yeah.
kind of situation. Everybody is everything there.
Yeah.
You know, you can abuse a
And
person.
not regulated,
Yeah.
not moderated.
You can abuse a person,
Yeah.
you can make a rape threat, you can do slut shaming, you can do anything.
And you go
And-
scot-free.
And you can create a fake profile, you know, and never be caught, never be tracked at all, you know. But all of that is impacting somebody's mind
That's
somewhere.
a huge menace
you know.
of cybercrime.
But the same
Yeah.
technology also can become one of the
solution.
most powerful solutions. Solutions for reporting, solutions for creating awareness, solution for breaking the chain of crime, you know. Technological advancements have been used like web crawlers and things like that, which can actually identify such content, which is remove it. When there is content which is violative and there is content of violence, content of abuse, you are also impacting the minds of human beings who are constantly watching that kind of content, you know. Now, in the name of free expression, if you allow these kind of thing, you're also slowly conditioning a society's mindset towards accepting all this as a normal behavior.
You're supplying to the
Yeah.
demand.
So all this can be counteracted through, you know, countered through a technological innovation. So technology can be a boon as much as it is a bane.
Yeah.
And I feel that today the need of the hour is to, in many ways, raise the moral compass of our scientific thinking in seeing how we can make the right usage of technology for the good of humanity.
Is there anything that Prajwala is doing in the technology space?
So just before I got my Padmashri in 2015, I kind of initiated a campaign called as Shame the Rapist campaign. Now, how did that campaign start? It started with 2 videos, which was being circulated thanks to technology through a wide audience, same content. Now, what is the content? A 12-year-old getting gang raped by 8 people
It was circulated.
across on WhatsApp, YouTube, everywhere. The second video was this young woman who might have been, you know, moving about with her boyfriend or a male partner somewhere in some remote place, and some goons have attacked them. So boy is getting beaten up on one side and the woman is getting molested and raped on the other side. That's being recorded. That's the content which is getting thing. Now these 2 videos really shocked me. Shocked me for 2 reasons. One, I have survived gang rape myself, you know, and for whatever standards, I'm talking about 35 years back now, and today 37 years back to be precise. You know, at that time, this kind of an act would be wrong. Okay? Now, 37 years later, this kind of act is now being, you know,
Watched,
spread
made
with
viral.
impunity.
Made viral.
Yeah,
So
and
that's the
everybody,
demand you're talking about.
yeah, and people are watching it, consuming it. That's why it's going again and again. That really, you know, put me off in a big way. And within 12 hours, I started a campaign called as Shame the Rapist. And what I did is I took these videos, highlighted the faces of the offenders. They're doing it, you know, when they are showing it viral, they are already showing their damn faces, and blurred the faces of all the victims and posted it on social media and said, these, you know, men are proclaiming and flaunting themselves as rapists. Please tell me who they are so that we can report the matter. Now, what is interesting about this campaign was, in less than 24 hours, all my offices were vandalized. My vehicle was vandalized. So who was getting bothered about this campaign?
So you are getting noticed and not
And
the
I was getting
perpetrators.
beaten up for highlighting the rapist, and which shows a very important attitude and perception of the world and the society. But a lot of work we are doing on technology is on online safety and creating awareness among people on how to use technology safely. What are the safeguards to be done? How far do you? So at one end, the predators are all there, you know, but another end is if we can make the potential victim, you know, a little more aware on what are those points where you can be taken for a ride, you know.
Yeah.
So just be, whether it is matrimonial sites, whether it is dating sites, whether it is social media, whether it's job sites, whether it is even classifieds. How do we make these spaces
lot
more
of work.
safe? And I think a very big important role has to be played by technological companies too.
Correct.
To take accountability of what comes on their platform, to take accountability of creating safeguarding protocols. The scope for misuse is minimized. Can we minimize fake profiles? Can we minimize, you know, encryption in such a way that it is used only for what is required?
Correct.
The same encryption is now used for doing a crime. So, see, technology is a weapon.
Yeah.
You know, a knife can cut vegetables, a knife can kill a person. It completely depends on how you use that knife. So when we take responsibility for that, we as a daughter, a son, a wife, a husband, a brother, a sister will behave differently with our own, you know, small spaces, you know. And when those small spaces become safe, automatically, you know, when the family becomes safe, the community becomes safe. And when the community becomes safe, the society becomes safe. Society becomes safe, the nation becomes safe, you know. So everything starts from that one person. So it depends. Today, if you want a safe India, it means I, as an Indian, have to think safely, behave safely, appear safely, do everything safely, which means not only I respect myself, I respect the other person around it, you know. I will not do anything that will make you feel unsafe. I will not do anything that will infringe on your space. I will understand when you say no to me. I will understand when you say, I don't want this, you know. I will respect my body because then I will be able to respect your body, you know. I will respect my power, then I will be able to appreciate your power, you know. And my power is not in crushing you, you know. My power is not like, okay, now if I, you know, rape you, then I'm feeling like a big man. No, my power is what is inside me. You're not giving me the power, I'm giving the power for myself, you know.
Excellent.
So I see the power within me. I can't be part of a community or a world which is hurting each other. And that comes from our choices, you know. And when I say our choices, Sushil, it also means if I choose to look away, in my looking away, I'm doing two things. One, I'm fostering silence. Two, I am encouraging a crime, because that person who's committing the crime says, no consequence.
Scot free.
Everybody is keeping quiet. Nothing is happening to me. That gives you the
No deterrent.
confidence कि भैया यहाँ पे भी कर सकते हैं and I can
बिल्कुल.
do it anywhere. Every parent should teach themselves and their children to speak up. Because all these things are very nice rhetorics when it comes to outsiders. अपने घर में, in your own damn house, if you see something wrong, speak up. Create a culture where you can dissent within your families and say, no, this is not right. This behavior is not right. This is the right behavior, you know. Talk about it. Talk about boundaries. Talk about consent. Talk about what is acceptable and what is not acceptable within your own setups, you know. Everything has to start from there.
How do we involve men in this conversation? Because clearly, you know, we can't just focus on 50% of humanity. We need the other 50% also to be part of this conversation. But how do we make it like a team effort now?
So, Sushil, when I use the word society, when I use the word family, when I use the word community, I'm talking about men and women. I'm not talking, I don't think men are coming from Mars and women are coming from some other planet. And therefore, when change is something that we are talking about, we are talking about change in both men and women. Not just men, not just women. It cannot happen that way. Both have to start thinking differently. I know thousands of women who believe that getting beaten up by their husbands is okay. Certain mothers telling me on my face that if my husband has raped my daughter, he's doing it only within his family, right? He's not doing it outside.
What?
That kind of normalization also I've
From
seen.
the mother?
From the mother. Because her whole overwhelming focus is on not breaking the family. Say, okay, it's happening within the family, let's keep it within the family. So this kind of cultural conditioning can happen by men and women, and so change has to come from both. Having said that, when we talk about women's safety from the perspective of sexual violence, we need to definitely target men. Target men in terms of their attitude, and because sometimes we have wrong placement of things. So far, for centuries, we have placed the onus and the burden of the shame, the guilt, and everything on the woman.
On the victim, on the survivor.
Yeah. She has been told million times again and again for sexual violence that you caused it, you should be careful about it. Whenever there is a case of, say, RG Kar or a Disha case or a Nirbhaya case or whatever, we very naively, whenever that happens, we're all running towards the girls. Every girls' school, there will be self-defense classes, and then, everybody will be given some pepper spray. Come on. What are we teaching our girls? Same thing. Be careful, be fearful. You keep looking this side, that side, anybody can attack you. So what are we teaching our children, our daughters? To be suspicious of every man, to keep such high. Is this what you would call safety? Safety is not suspicion. Safety is not fear.
It's freedom.
Yeah, safety is not walking, with so much of tension ki bhaiya, kaun humko kahan se rape kar lega, That is where the entire onus of this, we have to mindfully create it. We have to create that on the person who's committing the crime and say that you will be shamed.
Correct.
And you're going to be pained by the consequences that you're going to bear, and that will happen quickly.
Correct.
And therefore, for me, women's safety from the perspective of sexual violence is not a women's issue. It's a man's issue. Until and unless we don't invest in our men and boys in terms of changing their perception, their attitude. And it has to change from small things, Sushil. It has to change in our own families about, blue is for boys and pink is for girls, doll is for girls and gun. It's where you're creating that kind of a social construct. Start changing from there, that this is not the way to look at a woman or a man, because you're giving also the wrong messages for the girls also. No? Man has to be macho, he can't cry. We also need to talk about sexual violence of men, We need to create openings and platforms where boys are not sexually abused. They're also sexually abused. But because of your cultural conditioning, which says only girls are abused, only girls have an outlet to speak. So what happened to the boys? They can't speak because they think their mardangi will come down. If they tell anybody that I have been inappropriately touched, I can't speak about it. I can't articulate it. So where does this go? It gets suppressed in me. What happens to these boys who has so much of repressed, unresolved pain and trauma? Tomorrow, if they become abusers, to sublimate this feeling, you're creating a space for more abusers to come in. And that is why when we talk about parenting, we talk about creating a safe space for our male children and our female children to talk about abuse, and tell them what is right and wrong.
So make it a conversation at home.
Exactly.
Talk about it.
Yes,
right?
invest in men and boys, because I think we have invested too much on girls, in my opinion.
Absolutely, agree. Are there any startups who approach you saying that we have technologies for prevention? There are a lot of technologies for the forensics part. Who
Yeah.
did that?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, for example, you talked about your movement where
Yeah.
you identified and you said, do you know these people? Tomorrow, artificial intelligence can very easily sort of profile. So, but that is forensics. How do you apply technology for prevention? Are there any examples, startups coming to you saying that?
Very, very few. Most of the startups are more concentrated on, definitely on reporting,
Okay.
So reporting and quick reporting as a available model in terms of where is the SOS, whom you can alert, what is the number you can call, how can you get help and things like that. Very, very less on, prevention in terms of building awareness, changing the narrative, creating a cultural consciousness about masculinity and sexuality, about femininity and masculinity,
Yeah.
about respect, and that kind of content generation through technology.
Yeah.
Which can be slowly internalized, and more people can get understanding of, because certain amount of awakening itself is prevention.
Yeah, absolutely.
At one end you look at education and awakening as prevention. At another end you look at criminal justice system, prosecution as prevention. Because the more number of people who can get convicted, more fear is generated. Today, I think a big part of the problem continues because there is so much impunity.
Yeah.
That can be broken only by better prosecution. But awareness is not
Yeah.
the answer.
Yeah.
Awakening is the
Awakening.
answer.
Wow.
And there's a big difference between awareness and awakening.
Absolutely.
Because awareness is just knowledge, information. That awareness should actually trigger something inside you to act. So that is where you need to, focus your technology to awaken people to act.
Excellent. What can we do in the workplace? Because workplace, safety of women is an issue.
Definitely, sexual harassment at workplace is one of the major problems across the board globally.
What can workplaces do proactively? Simple things that will matter a lot.
My greatest frustration with companies and corporate culture and several working establishments, they don't even think that this is a problem.
We are in the modern world. It does not
Yeah.
exist here.
Not only it does not exist here, say it's something like Me Too movement, It's like, oh my God, these are some more troublemakers coming into thing. That attitude has to change, Some basic things like whatever is the provisions provided by the existing law, can you put it in your company so that there is a safeguarding?
There's a policy, there is
There is a
awareness.
PoSH committee. Create those systems in your place so that if there is something to be reported, people can report. And if you think somebody is making a fake report, because that is also being misused. There are people who are misusing it. The law provides for that.
Yeah.
Make that also aware, no?
Yes, of course.
See, because when we talk about safety, it's not just about women being safe, but also about men feeling safe.
Yes.
Tomorrow cannot be, oh my God, I can't talk to any woman, pata nahi kya allegation laga denge.
Correct.
Fear from this side or that side is not safety.
Correct.
Safety means both the genders, in terms of both the sexes feeling.
Your idea of PoSH committee, possibly at a board level, is fantastic.
Exactly.
We have audit committees and we have HR committees.
Exactly. And let the company be, evaluated based on that. You have performance indicators.
So best place to work for.
Yes.
Safest place to work for.
ISI standards.
Wow.
In creating that. How do you create gender-friendly structures?
Yeah.
In this Reliance Park that I have visited, just a small thing which came into my eyes, and I don't know whether others noticed, the lactating rooms. Creating a space where you're saying motherhood is good.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's part of a working space. So these are the ways that you're creating a safe environment in a corporate culture. You're saying you don't need to feel bad because you're a mother.
Yeah.
You don't need to feel bad because you're a woman, And the same thing for men. So small legal provisions and whatever structures that goes with that legal provisions, create those things.
Excellent.
Also create a open environment where grievances can be redressed, because we are evolving. Not all of us are evolved. There will be some among us who will still come with some regressive thoughts. Some among us who will say, okay, I'll give you a promotion if you do this for me and that for me. You know, let that be addressed in an open environment and create a trauma-informed space where the victim is not shamed for speaking up.
But there's silence in workplace as well.
Exactly.
What happens if I lose my job?
Exactly.
I
And
need
what
my job.
happens, what are the consequences if I speak up?
Correct?
You know,
Correct.
the way people are going to look at me and the way people are going to be treating me. Create those safe spaces for people.
I also want to ask you about your book. It says, I am what I am, right? The first question is, why did you write this book? Second, what I'm intrigued about is the title. And I want to know what is the takeaways that the youth of our nation from this book that they can have.
I think there are two very hilarious and not so hilarious instances which triggered the book. I think one was my father. For a big part of the last 3 years of his life, wanted his autobiography to be out. So we did make his autobiography, and exactly 2 months later my father died. And one
So
of the
sorry.
things that I gave everybody for his 11th day ceremony, the memorial, is Dad's book. So everybody got the book, and what was very interesting was everybody, irrespective, including my mom, everybody said the same thing. You know, we didn't know Raju Krishnan was so great. We didn't know he did that and he did this. And that's kind of triggered something in my mind. I don't want this for me. I don't want, when I'm dead and gone, people say how great I am, or how that I am, or how this I am. Whatever I want to listen about me, let it be when I'm alive.
Nice.
You know, exactly 2 months later, I had a weird call from Bombay. Somebody claiming to be from the film industry.
Okay.
Said, ma'am, we are making a biopic of you. I said, meaning on what basis? He says, no, ma'am, the script is ready. I said, how is the script ready? No, ma'am, we have done all the Google search
Nice.
and we have made the script. I said, listen, I'm not ready for a biopic. Let's keep it down. Then I spoke to my husband, Rajesh. I said, what are these people talking about? What is available on Google other than my speeches and all that? He said, go and see YouTube. And when I saw YouTube, I saw multiple versions of my life.
Like?
Everybody has created their own imagination. Somebody
Nice.
has got me raped at 3 years, somebody at 7 years, somebody at some other time. That thread that I was raped is common, but after that, it's all their own imagination. And that is when I said, I have to tell my story in my own words, which is this is a permanent content. This is
You've
my
established
story
it.
as I want to say it, and how much I want to say it. Having said that, for me it was, what do I want to convey? My story is about ostracization, stigmatization for a crime I did not commit. My story is about pain. My story is about exclusion. My story is about the 17 attacks on my life. My story is about the world not understanding me. My story is also about hope. My story is also about opportunities in every adversity. My story is about also light within yourself that can ignite a change in somebody else's life. At that time, the title of the book was Being a Survivor. So a few friends of mine who were visiting me saw the title and they said, you're not just a survivor, you're also a fighter, you're that. And then I was thinking, as they were saying, there are different perceptions about me. Somebody thinks this about me, somebody thinks that about me in the nice way. And then there is a whole world of people also who think I'm the worst demon on the earth. I'm regressive, I'm moralistic. There are even people who call me a human rights violator, and all kinds of names. So that's when I said, I don't want to play to the gallery.
Yeah.
I am just what I am.
Lovely.
With all my frailties, vulnerabilities, weaknesses, failures, successes, my strength, my weakness, everything, I am just what I am. This is the total me. Meaning it's not, so don't make me a hero that I'm not. Not deify me, because I'm not all of that. End of the day, what I want this book to do is to tell the world that nothing is inevitable reality. But that requires a collective mindset. Collectively, we need to think. And what I'm telling from my book is one person's journey to change that mindset, you know. If this journey can be done by a 4-footer, each one of you all reading this book who might be 100 times taller than me, you can do much more. So I think this book is about possibilities, you know.
You mention a very heartwarming story in your book about a rickshaw puller,
Yeah,
okay, who has rallied with you in his own unique way.
yeah. You
Tell
know,
me
Sushil,
about
sometimes I'm amazed by the goodness of humanity. I'm
that's
amazed.
what gives you hope.
Exactly. And I believe that so long as, and I believe goodness is larger part of the world, you know. This rickshaw puller who saw program of mine on Doordarshan many years back and felt so compelled that I have to contribute to somebody who's fighting sex crime, you know. And from that day onwards, he's been giving me 11 rupees every day.
Every
You know,
day, 11
every
rupees.
day. And he just writes to me a note that, you know, Behan, I think of you every day, which essentially means that I think of this cause every day. And I can't do anything like proactively in the front, but I choose to back you and I choose to support you, you know, by this. And to me, that's the biggest donation that I get.
Ah, wonderful.
I don't think any billionaire can match this rickshaw puller, you know. And there are thousands like that who say, yes, I want to fight. I want to fight it this way because I can't go up there.
Correct.
Which means that they're constantly thinking about women's safety.
That means each one of us can be part of your movement in our own way.
Exactly. Today, with this mobile technology, you know, you can also be a change maker.
Absolutely.
Do you post things on social media? Do you post your Insta reel? Start reacting to some of these things, you know, small things. Even if you say today that I support every person who is gone through this thing, I stand by her. Just one segment, you know, you are actually contributing, you know. Every day you see things. Now you look at the newspaper, you will have thousands such cases. What do? You just
Yeah.
go to the next page. Don't go to the next page. Take small picture of that, post that, and say, this is not acceptable. This is not done. You know, this has to be investigated. You know. Now, if everybody starts posting this and saying this is not acceptable,
Not acceptable.
the ones who are doing it are also on social media. You know.
And it puts a lot of pressure on the system.
Yeah, and also on the persons who are doing it.
Correct.
Said, okay, tomorrow if I do it, I can also come in the paper now, you know, and this is not going to be accepted.
So the
you know,
deterrent,
and that
create
is why, you know, one of the things that I have been demanding for many years now is a sex offenders registry, a public registry, where offenders who have been convicted of the crime can be publicized and say, okay, you are this. So let people understand the consequences of their act. You know, when you touch somebody inappropriately in a bus, your photo can come there on the newspaper or on a website. Your job prospects will be lost. You know, you may tomorrow not get somebody, you know, to marry you. Let people understand that there is a consequences for your wrong acts, you know. And that is something of a culture that we need to create, and that for today all of us can do it. You know, there's no need of you becoming anything at all. Thanks to technology, you know, thanks to technology, you have the power to change something around you.
What makes you so hopeful of the future, Sunitha?
The deep trust in the goodness of humanity. Today, if Prajwala has survived 30 years, it's not only because of Sunitha Krishnan, it's because of the millions who have supported this idea, this thought, and had faith that, yes, Sunitha Krishnan will bring change. That goodness of humanity is my hope.
You've often said that you're working towards not working someday. Would that
My
happen?
greatest dream,
Would that
Sushil,
happen?
is to close my shop.
correct? Would that happen?
I don't know. I dream of it every day. I work for it every day, every minute of my life, that a day should come in my lifetime where I don't need to be existing, and I can happily sit and watch Netflix with the nice romantic movies. Yes, definitely a day should come when there's no requirement for a Sunitha Krishnan or a Prajwala. That's a day I aspire for.
Sunitha, on the book you say you are a survivor, fighter, crusader. I must say that you are a true inspirator. Thank you so much for being who you are, Sunitha. Thank you.
Thank you so much.